What is up, insiders? Welcome to this week's Insider Edition. It is Friday, June 23rd, 2023 at approximately 1:28 p.m. Central Time in the wonderful city of Houston, Texas. It is currently hot. Feels like 103 degrees, and that's chilly compared to the way it's been. This week, we're going to be covering a few different things. So, some general news, and I went to a couple different events. So, let's get into it. First off, a little housekeeping. If you aren't already, I would encourage you, if you didn't know, what you're listening to right now, my voice, is not only available on the chaddingtonpost.com at the top of the article, but it's also available on Apple Podcast. And by the time you listen to this, likely on Spotify, as well as every other podcast platform. So if you haven't already, and if you want to if you listen to podcasts, go ahead and follow us on Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And whenever I publish a new article, it automatically goes to that RSS feed, and you'll be able to listen to this. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the audio version as comprehensive as the video. So if you don't know, there's a video. If you're listening to just the audio, you can go to the chaddingtonpost.com, find this article, and there's a video associated with this. I've reached out to Substack, so I'm using Substack to manage the podcast currently, and they only handle audio at the moment. So I've asked them if they could, if there's a way I could upload the video version of the podcast and make the video podcast, make the video version show up in Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify and that kind of stuff. But they currently don't have that capability. Substack's new. So bear with me on that. And, I'm still learning. So it may be user error. So let's jump into it. This week, I've been to a couple different events, and there's a couple pieces of news that I would like to discuss with you. Number one, if you're an Apple device user, you need to go and do your security updates. So go and update all your devices. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency of America, has released a notice, an alert that you need to go update your stuff. So if you don't already update your phones and Apple devices, you should update everything regularly. And because 0 days, stuff like that are real, and you don't want to get hacked just for being lazy. So, and then also as part of that, I'm going to leave, if you don't already, it could be worth your time subscribing to the CISA alerts. So you can come on here and you can to the CISA.gov website, and you can subscribe and get email alerts automatically whenever, a serious alert happens. Usually it's revolving around industrial controls, in the OT space and critical infrastructure, oil and gas, stuff like that, which judging from the subscribers that we have on the Chaddington Post so far, which thank you. And if you haven't already, I would encourage you to please consider subscribing on the chaddingtonpost.com. And, for as little as $4.17 a month, you too can support a Chad and stop, help me from having to get a real soul sucking corporate job. But, hey, but so I would appreciate it. But judging from the people who have subscribed, which were up to 31 subscribers, woo woo. We've got people in government, critical infrastructure, and large oil and gas listening to this and reading the articles. So I would advise you, if you haven't already, to go register for these alerts. So moving into the events I've been through this week. First off, I went to a keynote presentation put on by SparkCognition, and it was called Proven Applications in Artificial Intelligence in Oil and Gas Operations. And what really caught my eye was it said this session will touch on oil and gas operations use cases using GPT with OEM and asset history documents. And so I was like, heck yeah, I haven't seen anybody using GPT or large language models or generative AI at all in oil and gas yet. And so I wanted to go to this. Well, come to find out, I saw a major red flag when I rolled up, and there was a banner outside that said AI perfected, which, you know, It's a bold claim so early in AI, and as you know, only Sith deal in absolute. So I felt like right away that I got marketed, and I probably got foul hooked. So nonetheless, it was free beer and appetizers, which who can turn that down? It was at the St. Arnold's Brewing Company here in Houston, which is not far down the street. And so, hey, free beer and appetizers, and plus, learn about AI in oil and gas, which I haven't seen much of yet. I was interested to learn. And, I was right. It was a little bit of a foul hook. It was a very long presentation. They had some great, they have some very interesting technology. What caught my eye from Spark Cognition was their visual AI offerings when it come to HSE and safety. They had some great stuff. I'm trying to think about it. It was, I'm on their website if you're not watching the video version. But basically, they're doing things like watching perimeters and providing real-time alerts for that. They're watching for worker safety in the field and in a warehouse or in bad environments and stuff like that. And they're able to send real-time alerts if someone falls or passes out or something like that, and um, get that person aid. I also really like that it can check for PPE. So if you're entering into a certain area that requires long gloves or a helmet or whatever it is, it can recognize that whether you have the proper PPE, and it's pretty cool. So it's definitely doing some cool stuff. But they didn't really talk about generative AI and large language models and Chat GPT until literally slide number, I think it was like 50, and it was just a bullet point that said up, new capabilities up and coming, basically. And it was like, we're going to do this at some point in the future. It's like, well, yeah, everybody in the world's going to do that at some point in the future. So, I'm not hating on, I mean, I guess I am hating on them a little bit. Um, I'm not hating on Smart Cognition, but because, it seemed like they have some great technology. It just seemed like maybe marketing and the higher ups and stuff like that, which is what always happens, got in and, made this, they just kind of, you should not. I don't know who approved the AI perfected, but you know, red flag. And but it was still a good event. And I met some cool people and learned some stuff. So the next event I went to was last night at the Ion District, which, if you don't know what the Ion District is, it's this super cool new area here in Houston where they're building a bunch of buildings, and basically it's for innovation and it's for startups and technology companies and things like that. And they have all kinds of cool events, but not only that, but they have some great classes too, and they have a prototyping lab, which I went and I was able to check out last night for the first time, and I was really excited to be able to see it. They have some cool classes, so you can take 3D printing classes, laser cutting, ceramics, woodworking, CNC plasma cutting, oxyacetylene cutting, which I know how to do, as well as I'm a welder. If you don't know that already, fun fact. Airbrushing, jewelry, they do all kinds of cool stuff. But not only that, they have co-op working spaces, and they have office hours for companies like Saudi Aramco and Exxon and Chevron and Oxy and Axiom Space and all this kind of stuff. And so it's a great place if you're an innovator or an entrepreneur or a technology startup. It's a great place to be hanging out, and I should be there more often. Well, last night they had this special edition. It's a collaborative tech talk put on between NASA and Pump and Pipes. And what it was is it was discussing ultrasound. And there's this new company called Novosound, and Dr. Joseph Schmid from NASA and Dr. Dave Hughes from Novosound gave a talk talking about Novosound's new ultrasound technology. And basically, what they've come up with is they've come up with this thin film technique to address the limitations of traditional ultrasound. So if you don't know, if you think of ultrasound, typically, it's stuck in a hospital and it's using traditionally ceramic at the end of the probe or the sensor, right? Well, there's some limitations to that. Ceramic is traditionally known to be brittle and fragile, and it's expensive and things like that. So that's why it's always been traditionally restricted the to the hospital. Well, Novosound has come out and they've got this thin film technique, which allows the sensor to be thinner and it's more flexible. As far as I spoke to the gentleman, Nathan there, he was very smart, and he did a demo for me and showed me how it was flexible around pipes, and it seemed like it's going to be some really great applications that couldn't been done before for piping in facilities, but not only that, some great medical applications that they're working on as well. So it was very interesting, and I'll leave a link down below to their website as well. So another thing I found while I was walking around the Ion was it was labeled as the Dome Lab, and it would caught my eye because there was some comfortable seating in there, and it was dark, and and while I was walking around with my Sauvignon Blanc, I figured I would explore and see what was going on in there. Well, I walked in and they asked me, they said, "Hey, come on in, take a seat," and basically you take a seat underneath this giant dome, and it looks like a projection screen, and it is a projection screen, and it's using projection mapping technology that it puts you in this very immersive environment. So think about, you walk inside almost like a tent, or if you think about like when you were a kid, I don't even know if they still do this anymore, where you would take a parachute and you would run the parachute up and get all the air in it, and then all the kid, you would all close the close the parachute over you, and you'd be in this dome, right? Well, imagine that, but it's filled with imagery and immersive imagery. And he put us through some NASA videos because we had just came out of the NASA Tech Talk, and so it was very relevant. And we got to see some things from space, and it was really really cool. And I got to talking with Thomas from Omnispace 360, and he was telling me all about it, and it was great to speak with him. And so yeah, if you haven't seen this, or if you have any sort of interest in immersive and projection mapping stuff, definitely check out Omnispace 360. All right, moving on to some news. A couple things. It's been a slow news week. Basically, the entire world's attention was on the Ocean Gate Titan submarine, which unfortunately, it came to a bad conclusion, and um, you know, it's a tough thing. And thoughts and prayers to the families. Um, Yeah, that's I mean, it's what else can you say? But one of the things that there's a couple news articles this week that caught my eye. And the first one was this AI generated secret invasion intro angers Marvel artists and fans alike. So this caught my eye because basically it's involves some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry. You have Disney, which is the biggest of the big, and you have Marvel, which is another big one. And they use generative AI to create the intro for their new show that came out on Disney Plus called Secret Invasion. And this is way ahead of what I thought was going to happen because there's been a massive backlash from Hollywood in on generative AI and using it at all because obviously from the writers and the artists, it's an existential crisis for them, so they're um, fighting it tooth and nail. Well, it's going to come and it's going to happen no matter what. And to see this happening already is massive. And so I definitely envision a world. I'm going to give away a multi-million dollar idea here to Disney, but I can envision a world where a company like Disney, who owns all these properties like Star Wars, I mean, let's just leave it at that. So take Star Wars, you can create a generative AI off the Star Wars and make new content. And I mean, I think they're going to do that. If you go look at the Apple Vision Pro announcement, there was a lot of Star Wars stuff in there from Disney, and it seems already that they're starting to come around to that. And here's what I'm going to say: if you can make me new old Star Trek or new old Frasier, let's do it. I don't want fancy HD 4K HDR stuff. I want new old Star Trek, and I want it 4 by 3. I want it to look the way it looked. Um, and then not only that, but I can also envision a world where, we're just going to be creating our own content, or it's going to be created for us algorithmically based on what it knows we like. The next piece of news is I was watching ABC News yesterday while I was eating lunch, and I saw this come across my screen, and it says the rise of artificial intelligence kidnapping scams. So I put out a warning and a call to action about this a while ago. I don't know exactly how long it was. I have to go back on my LinkedIn and look, but I definitely got really worried when I started playing around with 11 Labs API, which, if you don't know what 11 Labs is one of the premier generative AI, voice AIs out there, where basically I went on there and I read a 1 minute sentence and it immediately recreated my voice in a very convincing manner. And this is one of those things that really scares the heck out of me for the future. And I've been talking to anyone that'll listen about, hey, we need to start making some awareness on this, which is great to see that they're doing. I think we need more awareness, especially when it comes to around the political sphere, because I don't put anything past these politicians or past PACs or that kind of stuff to start having generative AI versions of their candidates or their enemies calling the general public and having conversations with them and saying things to them. And I think that's really something that we need to be nervous about. And I think that's something that we need to be raising awareness about for sure. So, in the downtime this week, while the news has been mainly focused on the submarine, I've been kind of catching up on some podcasts. I've been exploring this Concrete podcast, Koncrete, which I'm going to warn you here a little bit. It's kind of out there. It talks about stuff like ancient technology and, astronaut gods and biblical stuff and ancient aliens and UFOs and CIA stuff. And so it's a little out there, but I talked to my mother, and then oddly enough, I talked to my fiance's mom, and it seems like they're all into that kind of stuff. So it seems like it's not that common, like not that radical of an idea to be talking about this kind of stuff. So I wanted to share it with you. It's been very interesting to learn, especially like about the Egyptian stuff, like the Pyramid of Giza potentially being like a power generator and things like that. But I've also been reading. So this week I've been reading The Ranger Way by Chris Tanto Peranto, who was there on September 11th at Benghazi. It's been a great read. I'm almost done with that, and it's been really, really well timed. And I've also been reading The Art of War. So if you haven't read that, probably should. There's definitely some stuff in there within the first few pages that are like, wow, I should have known this. I should have known this before. But on the lighter side of things, I'll let you into a little bit of a personal side, which is sometimes I dream about going to live life in a narrowboat in England. So if you don't know, in England, in the United Kingdom, they have a canal system that they used to transport goods around the country with, like, coal and I mean all kinds of stuff, chocolate, whatever it was, they transported around by canal system. And well, now that's turned into more of a leisure activity. And there's people who just live full time on narrowboats. And I've been watching some YouTube vlogs about this for several years now, and the first one I used to watch was Cruising the Cut. I've watched all of his videos as well as Foxes Afloat. But I came across a new couple this week. Their name is Ben and Emily, and they have a cat named Alan, named after Alan Rickman. And it's light and it's nice for when the news is a little overwhelming when talking about Ukraine or all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world. And if you want to like kind of escape to something a little bit lighter, or if you're trying to fall asleep and take a nap and something like that, I'll leave a link down below if you want to explore Narrowboat World. Yeah, so that's all I got for this week. It was a pretty slow week, but I mean, hopefully that's something that interests you. Hopefully that's some cool stuff for you. And I'd love some feedback. And thank you so much for your support. If you haven't already, please consider going on the chaddingtonpost.com and subscribing. There's a button somewhere. You can go in there like why subscribe, and there's a button right at the top, I believe. Yeah, right here. It says subscribe, or on any one of the articles. I'm trying to give away everything for free and just hope that people will support me because they like me or think I'm funny, or they like the content that I'm producing and the value that I'm bringing and the kind of news that I'm finding and stuff like that. And I'm trying to avoid doing the thing where it's like you have to have a paid article and then a free article, and I'm just really trying to give it all away. Like the only thing that's locked behind a paywall currently is the save tabs, because it's kind of like the secret sauce behind my entire, you know, how I find most of my knowledge is from my saved tabs. And so it's like I feel like that's one of the things that I should lock, but currently it is, but it seems like I don't know, we'll see. So anyway, if you would consider it for as low as $4.17 a month, which you probably have some subscriptions you don't even know about charging you for that much. So maybe you can just forget about this one too. I'm just kidding. But seriously, I would appreciate it. And so yeah, next week I don't know what I've got going on. I'm sure I'll find something. I'm sure I'll end up at something. But until then, stay safe, stay secure, stay curious, and have a great weekend. Bye bye.